Oh boy. Hello. Good evening. Good morning. Evening. Morning? I don't really know. Time zones are funny. Um good regardless. Hi. I know I'm just as pissed off as you are. I'm sorry. Again, procrastination, forgive me. Let's waste no time and get into part 7 of I was never allowed in the basement. I finally found out why. Part 7 slash final. Uh He. Okay. Sorry, I'm like tired. Forgive me. Hold on. Okay, there we go. a chilly fog enveloped. A chilly fog enveloped me as I stepped out of my rental car and walked up the steps of the modest diner. It'd been a while, but I remembered the place well. Papa used to take May and I here every Monday night for dinner. Getting through a Monday. Getting through a Monday deserves a reward, he'd always say. I smiled at the memory. Hearing the door chime open, the same sweet 50-something waitress that was always hurried over before leading me to a small booth. Hold on, let me try. Hearing the door chime open, the same 50-something waitress that, that was always here hurried over before leading me to a small booth. For the life of me, I couldn't remember her name until she told me it was Delilah. That's right. Delilah took my order: banana pancakes and sunny side eggs. May's favorite. She turned and took a few steps before stopping and looking back, a small smile on her face. Hun, do I know you from somewhere? You sure you look familiar, she asked, slightly unsure. I scratched my thick I scratched the thick facial hair that now covered my face, along with few extra wrinkles. First time here, actually. I'm just passing through. Guess I just have one of those faces, I said, returning her smile. Apparently content with my answer, Delilah left to relay my order to the kitchen. She returned with my meal several minutes later, and as I sat there eating, I couldn't help but think about that night, a little over 10 years ago now. The front of the truck, much taller than my parents' small sedan, had impacted their windshield and was sitting on top of the sedan now. Pieces of glass and metal covered the area, and plumes of smoke were rising from the front of the truck. I was frozen, unable to process. The terrified faces of my parents flashing through my mind again and again. Aaron, what happened? I heard Tara groggily ask from behind me. She had finally woken up. The sound of her voice finally broke me out of my paralysis. Without responding, I dashed over to the wreckage, to the passenger side where my mom had been sitting. The window was shattered, and the door was horribly bent. I peered through the opening where the window had been, and immediately wished I hadn't. I couldn't see my father due to the truck now inside the car, but my mother's body was horribly mangled, blood and exposed bones everywhere. Her head was crushed up against the side of the car, and her neck twisted at an impossible angle, so she was facing me. Her pale blue eyes that looked identical to May's were still open, but not seeing anything. I bent over and emptied my stomach onto the ground, and sobs racked my body. My eyes burned as smoke from the truck filled the air. Smoke. My heart dropped as I recalled another memory. My parents' bodies hadn't been unrecognizable due to the crash alone. No. The reason why we had to have a closed casket funeral was because of the fire that came afterwards. A desperate cry escaped my lips. Mom? I began attempting to wrench open the car door, using my good arm. It was badly bent and jammed shut, and no amount of pulling would open it. I kept trying though, unwilling to let the rest of history unfold. I removed my other arm from its sling, and despite the shooting pain it caused, I began using both arms to try to free the door. It didn't move an inch. Tara had reappeared beside me now, trying to drag me away. I pulled away from her grip and screamed for her to help me. We have to go. This whole thing is about to go up, she yelled, urgency filling her words. I kicked the car door in frustration. Smoke was burning my eyes and nostrils, and the fire was beginning to drip out beneath the hood of the truck. I grabbed what was left of the window frame and began pulling frantically. The pieces of glass, still lining it, dug painfully into my fingers and blood trickled down my hands. I didn't care. Aaron, he's unconscious, but breathing. Quick, help me get him out. I turned to look at Tara, who had opened the truck's side door. Let him fucking burn! I screamed back. Tara gave me a look of disappointment before trying to move the man's body herself. I once again began trying to open the door before catching my hand on another piece of glass. A long gash opened in my palm, and I cursed. I couldn't change what was going to happen. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, I whispered as the smoke poured out from the sedan. It was so thick that I couldn't even see my mom's face anymore. I looked back to Tara, who had barely managed to move the man at all. Without a word, I walked over to her, and together we carried the man from his car over into the field next to the highway. I remembered him from the trial. 34-year-old Zachary Thomas. After Zachary had apparently called in the accident himself, police found him drunk and passed out in the field next to the flaming wreckage. He was on his way home from the bar. He said he had swerved to avoid someone on the road. I remembered how his wife and kids sobbed as the judge sentenced him to 15 years. I unceremoniously dropped his torso, prompting Tara to lose grip on his leg. Zachary hit the ground with a thud. Tara gave me a, "What the hell?" look, to which I only responded, "He's fine." I searched his pockets and produced a flip phone. After dialing 911 and telling them the location of the accident, I hung up and dropped the phone next to him. Tara and I quickly made our way around the cars now engulfed in flames, and began walking back towards the field I'd arrived in. Tara grabbed her bag from the edge of the road. As we walked through the grass in silence, the sound of sirens filled the night. I heard you say, Mom, back there. Oh, gosh. I heard you say Mom back there. Those were your parents, weren't they? Tara said in a concerned tone. I didn't answer. Just as we reached the tree line, my foot bumped against something which rolled a few feet away. I bent down to inspect the object and realized that it was the bridge, though its milky white interior had been replaced with nothing but darkness. It looked plain now, ordinary, lifeless. 3 trips. Rage bubbled up inside of me, and I slammed it into the ground, expecting it to shatter. Instead, it did nothing but give a small bounce and remained completely unharmed. I picked it up and threw it into into the trunk of a nearby pine tree with every bit of force I could muster. Still, it did not break. Didn't even scratch. It just sat there, taunting me, so I furiously tried again and again. This went on for minutes while Tara watched silently. I finally collapsed on the ground, exhausted and panting heavily. Tara lowered herself to the ground next to me and without a word wrapped her arms around my body. I leaned into her and wept. We stayed like that for a while, me crying, Tara holding me. Eventually, I'd ran out of tears and finally realized how freezing it was. We were both soaked from the rain, and Tara was shivering against me. "Let's go get warm," I told her as I stood up, holding out my hand to her. "I have a whole world to show you." Tara smiled and took my hand. I guess I could have tried going home or to Tom's, but Tara and I were worried about the implications of potentially creating a time paradox, so we opted to stay away. We had nothing, which meant life was hard at first, but we made it work. We survived, and then we lived. We built a life. Tara was a skilled doctor, and just overall something of a genius. And I had knowledge of the future, which led to some interesting ways to make money. We bought a house. We bought a house on the other side of the country, by the beach. Some days, when we sat on the sand and stared off into the ocean, I could almost forget everything that had happened. Maybe we were only victims of circumstance, but eventually we fell in love and got married. I like to think it goes deeper than that. I'm sure of it. Of course, I missed May like hell, every single day of it, but loving Tara and being loved by her made it bearable. 10 years went by. 10 years went by, and the day finally came. I opened my safe and removed the infection-stopping serum and a few other souvenirs we'd kept safe all these years. I gave Tara a kiss, telling her I'd be back in a week. She smiled her big, beautiful smile and wished me luck. I grabbed my bag and left quickly, using the excuse of being late for the rental pickup to explain my sudden departure. The truth was, I just couldn't hold in my tears any longer. You see, as far as Tara knew, in order to preserve the timeline, I was going to wait until my younger self and Tom left for the other universe, and then I was going to sneak in and give May the injection before the ambulance arrived. That way, everything would happen as it was supposed to. May would live, and Tara and I could continue our life together. We'd just keep counting from 1 to 2. That is not what I was going to do. I do truly love Tara, but thanks to me, none of this was the way it was supposed to be. I had to fix it. I decided that I had to kill my younger self before I ever gotten the chance to set everything in motion. I'd never meet Tara, but she'd still be alive. My parents would live. May would be okay, and I should technically be fine too, right? Right? I had to stop myself from ever counting in the first place. For the next few days, I made my way across country. Whenever I stop after a day's traveling, I've been writing these updates. I don't know if they'll keep existing after I'm done, but I just wanted someone else to know this story. For it to exist somewhere in the ether, it felt important. It was morning. Hold on. Hold up. Where we at? Only 15 minutes. Okay. might fix this like fast. Hold up. It was morning when I got to town and pulled into the hospital's parking lot. Clouds filled the sky, and I could see a fog beginning to roll over the town. Somber weather for a somber day, I guess. I sat down in the hospital room next to a sleeping old man. The cancer had progressed pretty far at this point. Oh, God. I knew he wouldn't be waking up again. And I knew he wouldn't be waking up again. Damn it. I laid my hand on his. Hey, Papa. I miss you so much. I said through tears. You wouldn't believe the trip I've had. I watched him sleep for a while before eventually I heard a familiar voice at the door. Howdy. So how do you know my big brother? I looked up to see my great uncle Tom standing at the threshold with a polite smile on his face. I nervously rose to my feet, unsure of how to respond. I was good friends with his daughter. Excuse me. I was actually just leaving. I made my way for the door and stopped to look at Tom. I'm so sorry, I said impulsively, which prompted a curious look from him. For your loss, I mean. I gestured at my grandfather. Tom said nothing and continued to eye me. I slipped past him and reached the end of the hall before finally looking back. Tom was still standing in the doorway, staring at me and biting his cheek. Shit. Had he recognized me? It didn't matter, though. I had only one place left to go at this point. May and my younger self would be getting back to town today. I remembered how I'd complained of being hungry, and May pulled into our favorite little diner. I finished my meal and stared out the window into the parking lot. Any minute now, I gripped the gun in my lap, feeling its cold metal under my fingers. I was so focused on waiting for May's car to pull in that I almost didn't notice the old man plopping himself down across from me. I looked over in confusion to see Tom sitting there, wearing a concerned look. Call me crazy, but it seems you might be considering something that ain't so smart, he said with a gesture towards the gun in my lap. My jaw must have dropped because Tom just chuckled and said, Close your mouth, kid. Close your mouth. You think I didn't recognize you the second I saw you, kid? Go home, Tom. I was staring out the window again because May's car had just pulled in. Tom clicked his tongue as he followed my gaze and saw my younger self beginning to exit the vehicle. I flipped the safety off of the gun. Look, kid, I don't know what you think you have to do, but look, kid, I don't know what you think you have to do, but I do know that this ain't gonna go how you think it will. Let's go talk. Tears filled my eyes. 10 years waiting for this moment. There is no other way, I said rather loudly, causing Delilah to jump and stare at us. This is how I save them. Her. You. This is how I fix everything. This is how I stop fucking counting. Tom paused for a moment before calmly replying. Counting? You're counting. I'm not sure exactly what kind of trouble you're in, but I have an inkling. You think you're stuck. That killing him is the only way out. Tom pointed out the window towards my younger self. When I didn't object, he continued. But I don't think you really know what's going to happen when you shoot that poor boy out there. Maybe you think you'll stop existing. You might. On the flip side of that coin, maybe you don't. Maybe all that happens is you kill the boy and get arrested for murder. My money's on the second one, but who knows? But who fucking knows? Let's just go talk. And if you still feel this way, you can come back and kill him later. I was shaking now. I glanced desperately back out the window at May and I crossing the parking lot. We were laughing at something, and it hit me again how much I missed my sister. I clicked the safety back on. 10 years. Fuck it. I left with Tom out the back entrance just as we heard May greeting the waitress. We snuck around front and hopped into my car. After we drove back to Tom's house, I explained everything that had happened leading up to that point, starting from finding the journals in my basement, ending with him seeing me at the hospital an hour ago. If he was surprised at any point, he didn't seem to show it. He wasn't even fazed when I got to the part about Bradis shooting him. The only time he raised an eyebrow at all was when I mentioned the part about my parents. At the end of it all, he leaned back into his chair and asked if I still had the piece of back in his chair and asked if I still had the piece of his coat with the symbols on it. I did. And I produced it from my bag, handing it to him. He held it up to his face and squinted, inspecting it closely. Couple things, kid. He began. For one, my brother and I put Jay down a couple years ago. For another, although this here is indeed the identifier for Universe Zulu. He waved a piece of fabric in front of me. We are not in Universe Zulu. We are in Universe Sierra. Tom pointed at the last symbol on the piece of fabric. See? This one here is different. Has one extra line through it. Easy to mix up, I suppose. Lastly, just this year, I finally fixed the issue of temporal variance with my device, up to a decade at least. I stared at him, dumbfounded. What? I asked stupidly, not comprehending. Tom rolled his eyes at me and let out an exasperated sigh. Keep up, kid. You made a typo. A really costly, awful fucking typo. You're from Zulu, and this is Sierra. This ain't your home. Never was. I'm not your great uncle. And that's not you were about to shoot back there at the diner for nothing. You don't belong here. His words sank in. A typo? This was all because of a typo? One single goddamn typo? The last 10 fucking years of my life were because of a typo? I began laughing uncontrollably. What a big fucking cosmic joke my life was. I continued laughing before the insanity of it all set in, and then, laughing, turned into crying. Tom gave me and my antics a look of annoyance. So, my parents, in my universe, in Zulu, I trailed off. Oh, for fuck's sake! Your parents were maybe killed because of another you. Or maybe they were just hit by a drunk driver who By a drunk driver who swerved. Who knows? Who cares? Either way, just get the hell over. Either way, just get the hell over it and move on. I gave him a sharp look, but he just sneered at me before continuing. It happened. Your parents died. My brother died. I died. People died. Some might have been your fault. Some were your fault. Some had nothing to do with you. What's happened has happened and always will have happened, and ain't nothing you can do gonna ever change any of that. So stop fucking worrying and crying about it. Get over it, move on, and never mind the fact that you saved some lives. You couldn't care less. I opened my mouth to object, but Tom quickly cut me off again. Do you even hear yourself speak? I mean, what kind of narcissistic, egotistical, self-absorbed savior complex do you got going on in that nopey fucking head of yours to actually think that this whole damn thing starts and ends with you? Who the fuck are you? You? Me? All of us are just redundant cogs in a vast machine that's too complex for either of us to begin to scratch the surface of comprehending. So get over yourself. I remember Fenway's little girl too. And you mean to tell me that she married you? Smart as a whip, but she must be a real-life, bona fide, God-sent angel to put up with this shit. I can't imagine why you think you're so fucking special, but no one gets to stop counting, kid. Not you, not me, no one. The only thing you can do is to keep counting. Keep counting, and someday, before you know it, you'll reach the end. Tom's words felt like the verbal equivalent of getting ran by a 10-ton truck. I was completely stunned. My instinct was to argue back, yell at him, but I couldn't move my mouth, probably because I knew he was right. Anyway, you're completely missing the bigger point here, kid, Tom said. I wiped tears off my face and met his eyes, which had softened considerably. I can. I'm gonna send your whiny ass home. Tom's definitely not the type. Not in this universe or any other. And for that matter, neither am I. But I couldn't help it. I threw myself into his arms and hugged him tight. I hugged him in thanks for finally freeing me from this nightmare. I hugged him to say I was sorry for what happened, even though it wasn't really him. I hugged him for it all. Eventually, he hugged me back too. Only for a moment, though, and then he shrugged me off. After that, Tom carefully calibrated his bridge so that the next time I activated it, it would take me back home to Universe Zulu, moments after I initially left. I went to leave, but stopped just outside the door to thank him one more time. Good luck, kid, he said with a grin and a wink as he shut the door. So here we are, everyone. As of right now, I'm sitting in a motel room with the bridge in my bag next to me. No way it's leaving my sight. I'm about to get a few hours of sleep before I drive the rest of the way home to Tara. Following my encounter with Tom, I called her and told her everything, begging for her forgiveness. Bless my wife, because I barely even finished before she asked when we were leaving. As soon as I'm back, if you're ready. Of course. I can't wait to finally meet May, she said excitedly. You'll love her. You'll love her, I said back. Wish me luck. If all goes well, and I have a feeling it all finally will, then this will be my last update. Goodbye, people of Universe Sierra. Hang on, May. I'm coming. See you soon. I promise. Whoa. Finally fucking finished that story. Oh my god. Good story. Really good story. I'm finally, speaking of being freed from curses, I'm finally free from reading this, so I can finally play games like a regular person now. And before I start reading another story, oh, please no, oh no. So anyway, thank you everyone who throughout this that came out and just came out and just said hi and stuff. So thank you, and hopefully in the next stream we'll start doing going back to doing regular goofy ass shit. All right, thanks for coming out, and have a good night.